and we can provide safe shelter and things. We can provide safe shelter and get them on the journey towards rebuilding their life away from that relationship. And then there's a lot of different ways to safety plan, but I think one of them being that I know we part of the Canadian Women's Organization that was focusing on the hand signal that's been making the rounds online. A way to safety plan is we meet clients where they're at, right? We talk with them, we develop a goal. They're smart. Survivors are really smart. They've already figured out ways to survive. But now the difference being that they have our help and they have our connection, so we can find safer ways for them to survive the relationship. One of them being we develop a code with our clients often. We might develop a type of language that we speak. Maybe it's every time we call, maybe your friend Sarah from work, right? We're not the advocate. We don't use New Horizons. We maybe say that, or we maybe part of the safety plan might be when you need to call us, maybe say something like I'm just calling about notes or whatever, notes from class, whatever the case may be. But then there's also some classic ones that and the police departments we work with know this code, which is calling to order a pizza. That one's a classic. It's still around. And so I know and so now, especially with TikTok and kind of these new social media platforms, one of the ones making the rounds is the hand signal, right? The kind of closing, and then that hand signal that people are using to kind of indicate I'm in danger in a way that doesn't indicate to the person they may be in the room with that is causing them harm. But there's a lot of different ways to communicate with each other, and part of that safety planning is really making sure that our advocates are figuring out what that is in a safe way, without making sure that the abuser is unaware, and making sure that they are able to access us at all times, or when it's safe for them to access us. I don't know if there's any questions about that piece of it. I'm happy to go more in depth with types of services or kind of some other pieces of that. But I know in conversation with Sandy that we really wanted to hit that safety planning point. So I wanted to make sure to talk about that.
Alyssa, can you explain from the time somebody comes in to the time that they actually go to a safe home, how that process works?
Right. So are you talking about when they've eventually found a new place to live after staying with us in shelter?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's and I'm happy to explain that. And no journey is the same necessarily. Every journey looks a little bit different. But what happens is if they're ready to leave, we will arrange for them. Presumably the part of their plan is already included, gathering their documents, birth certificates, financial information, things like that. And of course, if there are children involved, making sure the children are all set and prepared to leave as well. And we arrange transportation if they don't have it. Sometimes if they have transportation, we'll meet them at a neutral location and then kind of escort them to the safe shelter location, which is in a confidential area. And if we need to arrange transportation, we might do a ride share at the neutral location and then drive them to the confidential location. We have a van we use for those purposes. And we, so once we've coordinated that, we pick them up at the neutral location and we've brought them to our safe shelter. We complete an intake. It's a packet that explains the shelter rules, guidelines, regulations, but also the resources available to them in the community and all the resources we offer. And it's really their guidebook to understand kind of that, because also there's folks coming in from, they had a house, right? They had their own space, and now they're coming into a setting where they might be sharing a floor with someone, and it can be unsettling when you're already trying to reestablish your boundaries after leaving a violent relationship. And so that's part of that intake process. We get medical information, ask if they need any additional, medical referrals, kind of really assess. The main point of the intake is to assess what type of needs we need to provide, right? Like do they need something as basic as clothing or food? Do they need something incredibly complex, like long-term mental health or rehabilitative therapy? Those are kind of we work with them, identify all of those needs, and that's the purpose of that session. Um, and then providing, of course, I mentioned the basic needs, providing toiletries, food, anything they need for that first night, and making sure they're comfortable, they're settling in. And so then in the following days after that, if it's a family, the child advocate will make contact and arrange for that, to work with children, and the housing advocate for all cases will contact the guests and arrange for them um, to put them on a path towards a new housing placement, which can take a while. We operate something called the Rapid Rehousing Program, and it operates on kind of a waiting list and matching system. And so it can take anywhere. It really depends on space and availability. But our housing advocate works with that. But then there's also many other ways to find housing for people. So that's really where our housing advocate comes into play. But our general guideline for people staying there in terms of time is, for individuals it's 60 days, and for families it's 90 days. So about 2 to 3 months is the general guideline. And so in that 2 to 3 months, we kind of address all of those needs we first identified, right? Like, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish while you're here? We know that housing is the next idea, right? But like, what else? What do you need to get there, right? Do you need to find a new job? Do you need to change your job? Do you need to do you want to go to school? Are you in school and need to finish a class? Do you need medical help? Like, are you going to have to get surgeries of any kind if there was like a physically violent incident that caused that? I mean, we've had people come out of hospitals and directly to shelters, so there's a lot of medical support in those cases. And so really working with the clients to identify, what are your goals and how can we help you meet them? Also keeping in mind that our job is not to tell people what to do or hold their hand and lead them exactly to where we want them to be, right? This is their journey and their story and their plan. So really, one of my advocates uses a great analogy that I like to share is we are driving the bus, but then the client is telling us where to go. And so if we turn right, we turn right. If they say turn left, we turn left. I always like to say a part of the safety being the key thing is part of the safety issue is we hopefully stop or advise against driving off of a cliff if they tell us to do that. But that's again, that's part of our role, right? Like they know how to survive because they've had to for so long, but we can say, okay, let's take all of those instincts you have, apply the resources we have, and make sure to get you where you want to go in a safe way. And so 2 to 3 months later, presumably we work towards some of these goals. A lot of these goals are kind of met simultaneously. We're not necessarily doing things one thing at a time. And there's of course exceptions. We've had clients who maybe are undocumented or need to apply for immigration. That takes a long time, so they might have to stay longer while we're working on that. Or clients, I mentioned earlier the medical parts, but like we've had clients who needed surgery, like really intense corrective surgery because they had been pushed out of a window on a second floor, and so that required a long healing period and coordinating that care. And so that of course they needed to stay longer, which is possible. We can never make, once the 2 or 3 month mark hits, it's not automatically okay, goodbye now, go ahead and leave. Our job is to make sure that they are, when they leave the shelter, they're going to a safe place. And so that's really kind of in a nutshell what that process looks like. And again, every journey is different, but generally speaking, it's identifying those goals, making sure they're safe, and helping them reestablish their lives as they move through the 2 to 3 months at our shelter.
Thank you very much. We have a request to find out. We do something every year for the holidays for the shelter. we get pajamas, we do a whole bunch of stuff. If we would like for us to come, if we'd like for you to come up with a plan for something that you would like for us to do for the holidays. Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Well, I actually, I know my donations coordinator, who's also the child advocate, she's working on a list of clients and families that we want to support for the holidays. Well, that might have to be a to be continued, but there's a lot of ways, we're always happy to talk about how to support us, like what that looks like. I know right now, and I know it's not Christmas, but it's right now it's actually Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so what we're doing right now is we actually are hosting our virtual Walk to End the Silence, which is a month-long process. And so I'm happy to send information out after to share with you all. But we have those ways to support now during this special month we honor and celebrate. But I'll have to. I know the request is to come up with an idea now, but I do have her name's Danica Freeman. I'm sure I know Sandy, you've spoken to Danica before. She's working on some of the family, because we were thinking generally every year we kind of do like items donations, or we have sponsors for families. So like we have specific families that people may sponsor and support them, maybe setting them up in a new apartment, right? Like with all of that they need, like cleaning supplies, appliances, things like that, all sorts of things. So those are a couple of ways we generally support families during the holidays.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Alyssa? If you have some, we can put them together. We can send the email to her and she can kind of get back to us. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I did want to say before I exit, like, feel free to email me. Sandy and Rachel have my information. Feel free to email me, call me. I'm available. I'm around. So thank you so much, ladies. And I hope you have a great evening.
I might like to take a look at that we've done some work on, but I haven't told everybody yet. So you may be getting an email. Well, I'm getting an email probably from Janet or Rachel. All right, I think you'll like it. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, now our